So like I said, we'll just be taking the introductory part of SQL. Brief class for today. My name is Godwin Osabute, and I'll be your tutor for today for this section of SQL. So my question earlier on was, what is SQL? Who understands what SQL stands for? SQL. Let me share my screen. SQL. What does it stand for? Come on, let's participate.
It's a query language.
Okay, it's a query language. So
Yeah.
what kind of query language is it? What kind of query language is it? Can you see my screen?
Yes, please.
Okay.
It's a um basically a data query language, or I would put it.
I don't know why this thing is so okay. 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 SQL, SQL, SQL.
Excuse me,
Yes.
SQL is a query language used to manage data.
Pardon? I didn't hear you.
I say it's a query language used to manage data.
Yeah, that's the question I asked you. What is SQL? Let's answer the question first. Um, let's not run away from the question, okay? Let's not run away from the
Structured
question.
query language.
Pardon?
Structured query language.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for the answer. So SQL simply stands for Structured Query Language. Structured Query Language. Right. Why is it called a structured query language? What would be the reason why it would be called structured? Who understands?
I think probably because it has it has a unique way of, like, when we mean structure. I'm just trying to paraphrase the English word structured.
I like the way you are putting emphasis on structured because actually that is where the answer to the question is. So yes, go ahead.
So basically, because of the word structured, it's
Mhm.
like it has like its unique form of querying a data. Like you can say maybe how will I put it? It's like writing a code. I don't know.
Okay. So let me just tell you, it is a standardized programming language. It is a programming language, right? But it is standardized, which means that it follows a particular pattern,
Okay,
right?
sequence.
It's a standardized programming language. And it's quite a simple programming language. It's not as difficult as the other programming language. So it is quite very easy to learn. And it is also very, very useful, very, very rewarding too. A career in SQL in particular I mean, if you take SQL to the very heights, it can be very, very rewarding. Because at the moment, not a lot of people, though it's a simple language to learn, but not a lot of people are willing to learn it to the fullest. Um, but I'm not saying that we are going to learn all of SQL. We are just going to give you the fundamentals of SQL to enable you become effective data analysts. If you get what I mean. So data analysis is made up of a set of is made up of a set of skills derived from the knowledge of particular set of tools, right? So the adequate knowledge as a data analyst, you don't need all the knowledge in every kind of tool that you would use, but the adequate knowledge to enable you perform your duties as a data analyst is what is required. Right, so we will just be focusing on the basics, the fundamentals of SQL to enable you carry out your tasks and duties as data analysts. Okay. So SQL basically is used in managing and manipulating what is called, yes, somebody has their hands up.
I did you again, please.
Yeah.
I just want to ask if you're going to help us through the installation process.
Yes, we will do that. That actually, normally, I would do that with you if the Power BI tutor doesn't do that first. He normally does that before me. So yeah, there is a bit of the Power BI that he likes to do, and he provides the data we use, some part of the data that we use. So he likes to do that first. But yeah, not to worry at all. We would walk you through the setup of the tools that you need. That's not a problem at all, okay?
Thank you. Thank
By
you.
next week, you should have your setups. We should do the setups, yeah? We're not doing any setup today. We're just going through. This is the setup. What I'm writing on now is the setup that you would need, that you would use. But we're not going to do that today. Today we're just starting with the introduction. Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Right. So you would see that in this sentence that I've just written, I say it's a standardized programming language for managing and manipulating relational database. You see that I've introduced another phrase, relational databases. What are relational, or what is a relational database? Who understands what that is? What is a relational database?
Database that has connections with one another.
A database that has connection. So I ask you, what is a database? And you say a database is a database that has connection. So you haven't answered the question. You've just repeated words for me.
Stored on same database.
Right. So a relational database. Okay, first of all, let me not even give you the answer yet. Let's break it up. What is a database?
Where
What is a
data is
database?
Database is a collection of different data together.
Beautiful. Collection of different data. Collection of different data. But so when you collect the data, how do you then store the data? Do you just collect the data and dump? How will you treat your data after you've collected it?
Save them, save them according to should I say in batches?
In what?
In batches.
In batches.
Yeah.
Okay, we are getting somewhere. Yeah, I like that. Go on.
What I mean, what I'm trying to say is, let me just make an explanation. What I'm trying to say is, when you collect the data, then what you do is the ones that are related, you bring them together.
Not exactly. You have an idea. You've tried. You have really tried. Honestly, you've used some words that I'm happy about, but not exactly. That's not the answer I'm looking for. But can someone else try? Can someone also try? What is a
A
database?
database is where data has been stored.
How? Yes, a database is something that stores is a collection of data. It's a store of data. That's it. Basically, that is what it means. Basically, a database is a store of data, a collection of stored data. That's basically what a database is. So, what is a relational database? Now, let me give you an idea. I asked the question earlier on. How do you, when you've collected your data, how do you store the data? To enable you answer what a relational database is, I just want to give you an idea of how data could be stored. Right, so you might choose to collect your data and then just somebody said, put them in batches. But what kind of batches are you putting them in? You might also collect your data and then put them in defined rows and columns or defined tables, predefined tables, right? Such that when you are looking for something, you would know exactly where to go to get that thing. But if you just have a collection of data in everywhere, maybe it's like in batches, but you don't really know what is where, then what happens? Are you able to easily look for things? It's just like in your living room. If you have a cabinet, you know what things you put in your cabinet. You know what you put where in the cabinet. So even at night, if there is no light, for some of us who are still in Africa, when NEPA takes light, you can still walk to certain parts of your room and then pick exactly what you want to pick because you know where it is. Because you have created a relationship with the position of that object. I'm not defining it that way, but I want you to see what the definition could possibly be. Are you getting where I'm coming from? So a relational database, simply put, a relational database is a collection of data in predefined relationships or schema stored in a table. Now, we all know what Excel sheet is, right? We all have Excel sheets. Let me see if I have an Excel sheet. This is an. Can you still see my screen? Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so this is an Excel sheet, right? Now, so these are the columns. These are columns. And then these are rows. These are rows. So a relational database is a collection of data stored in tables, predefined tables made up of what? Columns and rows. Now, the columns are called fields in SQL. Now, that tells us straight away that if we have a database that we call a relational database, then we should also have a database which is non-relational. Are we getting that? So there is a database that is relational, and there is also a database that is non-relational. right? Now, so example of a relational database is SQL. That's a clear example of, and that is what we would be focusing on, SQL. And an example of a non-relational database. Who can give me an example of that?
Excel.
Excel? Non-relational? I just use Excel as to show
Sorry.
that Excel can be used to create relational databases.
Yeah.
So who can give me an example of a non-relational database? Yep. Quick. Non-relational database. Okay. If you have a collection of pictures, how would you store those pictures? Will you store them in columns and rows, or you just store them in batches, as somebody said? If you take pictures, you go to a party, you take all the pictures in one party today, and then you go to another party tomorrow. You take all the pictures in another party tomorrow, next day. How do you store them? Are you able to store them in predefined columns and rows to form a relationship?
No.
Or you just store them in batches? And then you can only access them by probably the date of filming. How will you store them? Come on, let's think. Let's participate. That's what makes it interesting. I don't like to be the only one talking, okay?
In batches, so store them in batches.
Okay, fine. And the ladies, don't let the men overtake you. See, and the men are the ones doing most of the talking. Please, don't slack. Oh.
I'm not a man.
The men have already won.
No, I know the person talking now is not a man, but most of the ladies are quiet. Right? Okay, so what about even this lecture we are having? And it's being recorded, right? So is it a database? Can it be called a database? Yes, it can. Because
Yes.
a database is simply a collection of data. Even this recording can be called a database. When you make telephone calls, all that your telephone calls are stored in the UK, for example. All your telephone calls are stored somewhere. I think they are stored in a place in York. So every single telephone call that you make is stored. And that is how when there's a crime, the police wants to track your phone. They know where to, what call somebody has made, and then they go and then check, retrieve call data. Right? It's the same in every place. When you go on Facebook and you do posts on Facebook, how are these posts stored? They are stored in a random manner, in kind of random batches. Right. So those ones do not form a relationship. They cannot be put into a relationship. And so those kind of databases are called NoSQL. One of them is NoSQL. And a platform for that is MongoDB. MongoDB. Right? Okay. I'll fill up these notes for you after the lecture. I have the notes already, but I'll just send it to you. So at this point, I'm just sending you the the highlights. I'm just writing down the highlights. Right. So if we have a relation, we are not in this lecture or in this cohort, we are not going to be dealing with non-relational databases. Our focus will strictly be on relational databases, which is what? SQL. That is what our focus will be on. Now, so SQL simply is a language, right? Is a language that is used in manipulating the database, a relational database. But for this to work, it has to be managed by a system. It has to run on a system. Just like, okay, there is no one. Somebody said he did a bit of SAP. Okay, let me say.
Excuse me.
Yep, go on.
You said you have a meeting by 10:45.
Yeah.
It's already 10:47.
Which country are you in, sir?
Sorry. Nigeria.
Okay.
Oh, it's not yet time.
No, it's not yet time. I have about an hour more.
Sorry. It's okay.
Right. So SQL works, or relational databases work with what is defined as relational database management systems. Database management, database management systems. Management systems. That's called DBMS. Database Management Systems. DBMS. Now, examples of DBMS are examples, e.g. what is called SSMS, SQL Server Management Studio, DB2, PostgreSQL, MySQL, etc. These are examples, etc. Now, we cannot do all of these. We will just take one of them. And the one that we will be using is this, SQL Server Management Studio. You could also, this is also very common. This is also very common. This is actually coming up very fast now. A lot of people are getting into MySQL now. But this has been the benchmark for a very long time, and one that is still very much in use. And that is actually what I am working on at the moment, though I'm not using the functionalities of the system. I'm just using the canvas to write. Right. Now, the good thing about the SQL is that it is portable. Who understands what I mean by SQL being portable? It's a portable language. Now, what that simply means is that, you see, these systems here have got differences in the way they all operate. Right? They are similar. They do the same things, but they have their distinct characteristics. However, each and every one of them would respond to SQL in the same way. So SQL does not discriminate in which system it works on. It doesn't discriminate with any system that it works on. That is why it is referred to as what? A portable language. So if you use SQL in SSMS, you can very easily use it in MySQL. You can use it in DB2, etc. Okay, that is why it is referred to as a portable language. Right. Let's now look at the categories of SQL language. One, we have what is called a data query language. Language. Data query language. So the short form for that would be DQL. Now, what is this used for? This is used in querying, like the name implies, data querying language. It is simply used in querying data, right? It's used in querying data. And the key word for this, where's my cursor? Where is my cursor? Key word for this is the select word. That's the key word for this, select. The key word for this is select. The next category of SQL language is data definition language. Data definition language. So that will be what? DFL. And this is used to define and modify.
Sorry, this is data definition language. That's DF. Where is the F?
Oh, sorry, DDL.
Thank you.
DDL. Thank you. Data definition language. Right. So what is this used for? Used in defining data. Just as the name implies, right? So it's used in defining and modifying the data. And the keywords for these, for data definition languages, are the words create, alter, and drop. We may talk about create and alter, but I doubt if we will talk about drop. If we have time, we'll briefly talk about it. Not today, towards the end of our towards the end of our course. Then we have data manipulation language. Data manipulation, DML. So basically what this is used in what? This is used in managing data and manipulating data within a schema. Okay, now another word, I use the word schema. I would have explained it somewhere up here. Standardized in a relational database. So the explanation, you get it here. But a schema simply is a way to show how tables in a database are related. Okay. So if for example, I have, let me see if I can get a Word document. Do I have any Word documents? Let me see if I can open a Word document. For those doing for the BAs, you would start drawing, you will start making mini schemas where you will be connecting, you will be showing connections between different attributes that you work with. I'm not sure whether you've done that already, but I'm sure you would at some point start doing that. Why is this coming up this way? I don't want this. I want that. Isaac, close the door for me, please. Right. So assuming I have this is just an example, right? I just want to show us a kind of let me use this instead. Right. So if I have this one here and I connect this to that, and I have this and I say this connected to that, so this is a schema. It shows a connection between different objects. You get that? This simply is a schema. Shows how different so this shows a relationship. It shows this is related to that, this is related to that. But this, funny enough, is not related to this. It could be, but in this particular instance, I don't want to show a relationship between these two. So I can leave it at this. This is a simple schema. So this is what, when you say schema, this is simply what I'm referring to as a schema, okay? Something that shows the relationship between different objects. Right. So a data manipulation language is used for managing data within a schema. Now, what are the keywords for this? The keywords for this, again, are words called select, insert, update, and delete. These are the data manipulation language. So the emphasis of the word, see, manipulate. How will you manipulate something within a database? You can select, you can insert, you can update, you can delete. How do you define things within a database? You create them to define them. You can alter them, you can change their state, you can alter their definition, or you can completely get rid of them. That's drop. Right? How do you query a database? You need to select, you need to say exactly what you want from the database. To query the database means you are asking the database to give you an answer. Let's go back to layman English. What is a query? When somebody says that they have received a query, for those who are in work, if your boss tells you that I'm going to give you a query, what exactly are they saying to you? They're giving you a question which probably would border on discipline or something like that, and they expect you to provide an answer, right? So a query language to answer that language, you will need to select what you want to answer and select what answer you want to give. Is that making sense? In time, it will soon make sense. If it doesn't make sense now, not to worry. It will make sense in the coming weeks. Okay. Today is just introduction. Then we have what is called the data control language. Data control language. What is that? Now, this is used in giving user privileges. Privilege. It's used in giving user privileges. What do I mean by user privilege? Who understands what this means? Does anybody understand? Focus on the word privilege.
I
No,
would
focus
say,
on two words. Focus
okay,
on two words, privilege and control.
yeah. I might be wrong, but what I think it means is like assuming there's a software, right? That I will rely on someone, yourself, or one of my colleagues to give me access to.
Beautiful. That's all. In fact, you've just nailed it. You've just nailed it. Access control. That's what I'm looking for. Access control. Who has access to what? So that is data control language. And the key words for data control language are grant, and what will be the opposite for grant? You grant somebody access. What?
You deny.
If you don't want them to have access, what do you do?
You deny.
Use another word.
Oppose.
You retrieve.
No. Pardon?
Retrieve.
Use another word.
So only for 30 days.
I'm giving you a clue.
Revert.
Revolt.
You were almost there. Almost.
Revoke. Oh gosh.
So grant and revoke, right? These are data control languages. Then we have what we call transaction control. Now, what is this used for? Like the name implies, this is used for managing transactions. So now we say transactions. Common example, let's go to our supermarket. Let's go to our supermarket. We have gone to pick a few things that we want to buy, right? Then we get to the till. What do we do? To show that we really want to buy, there are two things when you go into the supermarket. There are two things that can happen. You can either take what you want to buy and go and buy them, or you can either take what you want to buy and not buy them and walk out of the shop with the things. And that would mean that you have what? Technically,
you've
stolen the things.
Yeah.
Right? Technically. But we don't want the police to be after us, do we? So when you have collected what you want to buy, what do?
You scan and pay.
You scan and pay. Now, what word will you give to that action of you scanning and paying? I'm giving you a clue again.
Control.
Commit.
Commit.
Okay, commit.
Right. Now, assuming that you have now bought the thing, you have committed to the transaction, you have paid. You have paid for the goods. But you realize suddenly, oh, I bought a gallon of oil, but I have 2 gallons of oil already at home. Or my wife just called me and then she said she's bought 2 gallons of oil. So do I need to buy the third one? No, cash is hard. I can't just waste money like that. At least I can use that money to buy something else. So what do? I don't want the thing I have bought. What do?
You return.
And then do what?
Get refund.
Okay. Return, refund. What would you call that process in transaction terms? Or in computing terms? I'm going to give you another clue.
Delete.
No, you don't delete. If you delete, it goes out, it goes away completely. You don't delete it. I'm giving you a clue.
Roll.
Roll back.
Roll back.
Okay.
Roll back. Right. So these are the categories of SQL language, simply. These are the 5 main categories of So all of these are SQL. Okay? All of these are under SQL. So when we are dealing with them, we are not going to be separating them. Just for you to have an idea, when we use a keyword, to know which of the categories it comes from. But the major keywords we'll be using are the select keyword. We would, towards the end of this program, I will towards the end show you how to use the create and alter and probably the drop. But under no circumstance, if you go to work anywhere, must you use the drop keyword without administrative permission. Without permission. Don't ever, 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 ever use the drop keyword without permission. And also, to a lesser extent, the delete keyword, don't use these. There is reasons for these. There are reasons for what I'm saying. And when we get to when we get to talk about them, we would kind of learn why these are why that is the case.
Please, I have a question.
Yes, do ask your question, please.
What is the difference between drop and delete?
Okay, that's what I said I didn't want to talk about, but you've asked the question.
Okay.
Right. So let me just explain. To drop, when you use the drop keyword, you are completely and totally getting rid of the database. So assuming your organization have a database of 1 million customers, their key most most profitable customers, and then you go and drop that database. That database can no longer be retrieved. It is irretrievable.
Okay.
You understand?
Yes,
If
yes.
you delete a table, you don't delete the complete database. Some parts and bits of it could still be retrieved. So delete is not as bad as drop. But drop is really terrible.
Oh.
So you never ever drop without the organizations saying so, that we don't want this anymore. So we
Okay.
need to get rid of it. Okay, that's simply the reason why. So we will be using the select keyword. The select word will be in fact, the select keyword is the most commonly used SQL keyword.
I have a question on that,
Yes,
sir.
yes.
Okay, so in the data query language, the keyword is select, and also in the data manipulation language, we have select. Is it the
Yeah,
same select or they are
it is the same
different?
select. Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
that's okay. Right. So what do I mean by this? Reserved words and user-defined words. What do I mean by these? Reserved words are the words like select, create, alter. All these are reserved words. Okay. There are a lot more. There are a lot more words, but these are just the ones I want us to look at now. Reserved. Now, the reserved words are a fixed part of the SQL language. They are a fixed part. They are fixed in meaning and must be spelled exactly this way they are intended to be spelled. So if, for example, you go and make a mistake and you want to write select and you forget the E here, straight away it will create an error in your language, right? So these keywords must be written and spelled in exactly the same way that they are meant to be. You can't change them. You can't manipulate them. Long and short, the keywords are immutable, right? So you can't change them, okay? Whereas the user-defined words, I'll give you the full notes on this. So don't worry. We're running out of time, so I'm rushing a bit. The user-defined words are words that whoever is working on the database can input into the database. Now, for example, let me go here. Let me just take this. Let me just take this as an example. Look at this. Look at this here. I have called something transaction ID. I decided to call this transaction ID, right? I can also decide to give this another name, true or false.
True.
True. I can decide to call it something different. I can decide to call it transaction numbers or transaction anything. I can just choose to call it whatever I want. What is this? Payment status. I can decide to call this whatever it is that I want. But these are names that I have given to the data in my table just to identify the different sets of data. You understand? These are user-defined words. I can decide to write them whichever way, however way I want. The only downside to that is that however way I have written them in my table, if I want to call them into my query, or I want to use them within my query, I must use them in the same way that they are written in the table that I have just used them in. Do you understand that? So if, for example, I've called this transaction ID, if I want to call this within my table, I cannot just call it transaction. I must call it what? Transaction underscore ID. But I can decide to call this any name that I choose to call it. Okay? That is what I mean by user-defined, reserved words, and user-defined. So the reserved words, we can't change them, but the user-defined, we can change them, right? Now, another thing about, so basically we are looking at what the SQL whole thing is, right? SQL also is made up of the statements are case insensitive. SQL is case insensitive. Insensitive. Sensitive. Now, what does this mean? It means that something like this is equal to do you get it? It doesn't matter. In some programming languages, you have to follow a particular format. If you have to write if you have to capitalize, it must be capitalized. In SQL, it doesn't matter whether I use lowercase or I use uppercase or I even use a mix of them. It doesn't matter at all. Okay? To recognize them. So SQL is quite flexible to use. Because of this, SQL is said to be free format language. It is free format. It is free format. In spite of that, it needs to follow a certain predefined set of practices. Though it is free format, it doesn't mean we should just go about and write however and whatever we like. It's a certain set of practices and rules needs to be observed. And what are these? So the SQL language is written, I'm not sure if you've seen programming language before. How many of you have seen programming language written before? I believe everybody has seen some programming language written before. Yes, no? Let me see if I can show a programming language. Okay, so for example, this here is a programming language, right? Okay, let me show it again. This is a programming language, right? This is a programming language. In SQL, okay, let me say this. Let's just let me call this a clause. Let me say this is one clause. For the sake of argument, I'm not saying this is a clause. In this language, it is not. But for SQL, let me just, for the sake of what we are doing, let me just say that this is a clause. That is a clause. That is a clause, right? In SQL, each clause in the statement should begin on a new line.
Sorry, can you repeat that, please? Okay,
Each clause in the SQL statement should begin on a new line. Okay? Now, the second point there, the beginning of each clause should line up with the beginning of other clauses, just as what I showed you here. The beginning of each clause, assuming this is a clause, that's a clause, that's a clause, that's a clause. The beginning of each clause should line up with the beginning of other clauses, so that this clause will be classed as being completely different from that one. Do you get what I'm saying? I'm just using this as an example. Okay? So the beginning of each clause should line up with the beginning of other clauses. I'll give you the full notes. I just need to finish this before quarter to 11. Now, if a clause has several parts, they should each appear on separate lines and be indented under the start of the clause to show the relationship. If a clause has several lines, let me go back to what I've been trying to show you. If a clause has several lines, assuming this is a clause, that's a clause, that's a clause, assuming these clauses are related, but they cannot all go on the same line, right? Then this is one part of, assuming all of this is one clause, assuming that all of this is one clause, assuming, right? Then the beginning of this clause should be indented to start right under that one, and this one should start under that one. So there is a reason why they are arranged like this. It is to follow a particular convention. And that is, the reason is to show that the clauses are related one to the other. Okay? Right. So these are the three main things we want to learn about how we use SQL so that our language follows a certain predefined set of practices. These are practices that we need to follow. Each clause should begin on a new line. The beginning of each clause should line up with the beginning of other clauses. And if a clause is just too long, such that it will not go all on one line, then the beginning of the various parts should align exactly one under the other. Is that making sense? These are the three main practices that we want to observe. Right. So there are two main things that we want to look at in this particular period of study. I mean, not just today, for the whole program. We will be looking at data query language and some bit of data manipulation language. We will be looking at parts of this. Data manipulation. Data manipulation and query. Data query and manipulate data. Let me make it data query and manipulation. What are the key words for this? We already know. One of them is select. Select, and we see that here already. So these are basically select, and we also get select here. These are this will be our focus for this study. This will be our focus. Okay. So these are the most commonly used data manipulation. They are the most commonly used commands, and the select statement is actually the most commonly used command in SQL. Is the most commonly used in SQL. Let's see how simple queries can be written, or the format for simple queries. Like I said earlier on, the select keyword is the most commonly used SQL command. Now, there is a format, there is a general format in which the select statement is written. There is a general format. What is this format? First of all, it has to start with the word select. Now, what is it that you want to select must be clearly stated. Whatever it is that you want to select must be stated. So it is either you want to select all of everything, or you want to select a certain specific. Let's call it. Right. Sorry about that. I have a right. So we have either you select everything or you select distinct things. You select specific things that you want, right? It's either you select everything or specific things. And then this select statement is always followed by the word from. So why the word from? Remember we said that SQL works on relational databases. And we said a relational database is made up of what? Tables. And I showed you a sample. I used the Excel sheet to show you that tables are columns and rows, arranged in columns and rows with relationships between them, forming a relational database, right? So you would need, when you have written the select word, you would then need to specify which tables you want to select, whatever it is that you want to select from. So you need to name the table. You need to name the table. And in SQL, it is quite common for us to give our table what is known as aliases. An alias. So for example, let me see those of us here. Let me see who is here, who and who are here. You see who and who are here. So let me not worry, Damilola. He's our recorder today. So Ijoma is also a co-host. Okay. Okay, let me leave our hosts. Otherwise, they can get angry and then log us out. So let me go to Augusta. Augusta.
Yes, Godwin.
Okay. Do you have a nickname?
Yes.
Okay. Can you share with us what that nickname is?
Ostilo.
Ostilo. Okay. Cool. Ostilo. That's beautiful. Ayodeji. Can you unmute, please? Do you have a nickname? Hello. Okay, Emilia,
Hi.
do you have a nickname?
No, I don't.
You don't. Okay. Emilia is a perfect lady. Samuel, what about Samuel?
Present.
Do you have a nickname, sir?
That I give myself.
That anybody that you are known by other than Samuel? What do your friends call you by?
Sammy.
Sammy. Okay. So Samuel. Okay. Right. So you will see that instead of writing the whole table name, for example, let me see if I named this table. I don't know if we named it. If I named it, yeah. I think this table is called Payment Gateway Data, okay? Payment Gateway Data. Instead of giving it this long name, I can decide to give it a very short name. I can decide to call it what? Payment. I can decide to call it cash data. Whatever name that I choose to give to make it easy for me to recognize it. That is the alias, right? So you would see that, especially for people with very, very long names, their friends will not call them by all of the long names. They will usually shorten the name. And for people who are normally, if somebody is fond of you, then they might call you by a pet name or something, an alias, right? By which they identify with you. So that's exactly the same thing that we have here. Then this is followed by a where clause. Now, the where is a set of conditions under which we want our query to run. Then we have what is called group by. How do we want our results to be grouped? So let me go back to this. Let me go back to this table. Assuming I want to select something from transaction ID, something from student ID, and then something from payment date. How do I want my results to be grouped by? What do I want to come first, second, and third? Do you get that? That's group by. So group by column list. And then we have the word having. This is also a condition which we would explore. Having so and so and so. So I want this, which I'm going to group by this, and which must obey a certain condition. And then finally, we have order by. Order by, and that is also column lists. We would explore the difference between the two when we get into it. Okay? Now, for all these things here that we have listed, only two of them are critically important. These first two. You cannot run a query, and I'm saying a query because there are other things that do not form a query, like these here. Like these, they are not queries, they are definition languages and control languages. So you can't have a query without these two. These two are mandatory. These two things are mandatory in each and every single query. You must select something and you must define or name the table from which you want your selection to come from. You must select something and then you must name the table that you want your selection to come from. So these two are mandatory. The rest are optional, depending on what is required. But these two are not optional. Okay, so the from specifies a table or table to be used. The where condition filters between rows subject to a condition. The group by forms groups of rows with the same column value. Having filters the group subject to some condition. And the order by specifies the order of the output. The order of the output. So whether it's how you want the output to look like. That's how you order it by. Okay. So basically, we have brought this to, these are the basics, the fundamentals, the introductory things that we want to know in SQL. I will be posting, is there anybody here who would offer to, who has been doing the posts on the chat, on the Telegram group for the group? Somebody I can send the notes to?
Anybody can post.
Anybody can post, okay. Okay. Right.
You can send to me. No problem.
Is that Damilola? Samuel.
Yes, Samuel, yes, please.
Okay, I'll send to you so that you can post to the chat, okay?
All right.
I'll send you the full notes so you can post on the chat. So go over it.
I think you need to send to me. I'm in elevated, and I think I need to send to another person that is interested so that the person can post there, because I'm not interested.
I don't understand.
There are two groups.
Oh, is that?
Are you talking of the DA group?
No, yeah, the data analytics group. That's what I'm talking about.
Are you
not all in the same Telegram group?
No, please, we are not.
Oh, I see. Are you not all in the CRC internship?
Yes, we are.
March 2025 BlueSky CRC internship.
Yes, we are.
Yeah. So one person can post.
Okay, no problem. I can post
if there is any problem, you can always anyone can get in touch with me, and I'm more than happy to do the post to share with you, okay?
Okay, no problem.
So Samuel, I'll be sending it to you. Make sure you post it to the group so that your colleagues can have it. And
no
then
problem.
go. Okay.
All right.
And then next week, if you have not yet downloaded SSMS, we will download it, okay?
Okay.
Okay.
So thank you very much for coming, and have a lovely good night and a happy weekend.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.